without margin, without center. Once again, thank you very much, madam, for enlightening us.
Nikam sir to felicitate Yashwant Sharma. I open up the
to announce a very near and dear thing to our heart, because until and unless you don't satisfy your hunger, I don't think so. This intellectual feast will make a difference. And we are really very happy that we have concluded this first inaugural session, and it's dot 1 o'clock. And we have arranged lunch for you in the hostel canteen that is available just adjacent, opposite the road in Sea Wing. The mess is adjacent to Sea Wing. Our volunteers are there to guide you. They'll definitely be there with you. In case of any difficulty, you may contact any of our volunteers or even us. This is the first thing I would like to share with you. And second most important thing, those delegates who are here for accommodation, I would request them to please give their names to our volunteers who are there in the accommodation committee, Vijay Chaudhary, Narendra Pandit Chavan. Both of them are there. Please give your names, because we are going to serve dinner to the participants who are residing in the hostel. So you are requested to please give your names so that we can make further arrangements for your dinner. So thank you very much, and please enjoy your lunch. Satyavan will carry on.
Mentors, and again, a very important feature to your personality, sir. Again, the topic of sir's presentation here is going to be South Asian literature and film. Right, sir? Bridging narrow domestic walls. So this is the topic that sir would be elaborating upon. So with this brief introduction, I will move on to a brief introduction of Dr. Zirange. Dr. Rajaram Sitaram Zirange is from Postgraduate Department of English, Bharati Vidyapeeth, Professor and Head, Postgraduate Department of English, Bharati Vidyapeeth, University, Pune. And actually I have got a very lengthy profile of Dr. Zirange, which is not possible for me to explain to the full extent. So I shall skip on certain items from his datum and then point out those that have been important from the general perspective. So he is an MA, MPhil and PhD. The teaching experience of at UG level is 20 years, postgraduate level is 9 years. Your area of interest has been British literature, postmodernism, science fiction, ELLT, linguistics. Again, there's a long list, or in fact there is a laundry list of publication to your credit, sir. Edited books, there are 4. Research papers published, there are 16. Then research papers presented at international, national, state, other events attended, it goes to, actually research papers presented is 11, and the participation at international, national, state and other events, it is 61. So much of what we can say, rate of attendance. And then, as a resource person, he has performed 11 events. Apart from that, there are many awards that sir has to his credit. He has received Best Teacher Award from Pune Municipal Corporation, Pune, on 5th September 2011. Then also received Certificate of Academic Excellence from the Chancellor and Vice Chancellor, BVDU, that is Bharati Vidyapeeth, Pune. Again, he has been an advisory on the editorial board of an international journal entitled The Criterion, an international journal in English with ISSN 0976, etc. Then there are certain special academic contributions to your credit, sir. You delivered several lectures as a resource person for various seminars and conferences. Again, organization of UGC sponsored first World Conference on Science Fiction Studies in India, 1st and 2nd February 2013. This is a mega event to everybody's understanding, sir. As a chairman of BOS, he has acted for 4 times. So with this brief profile, I again welcome you, sir, on behalf of Higher Education and Research Society and all the members present here. Now, may I please call upon Dr. Professor Dilip Bharat to come and make his presentation. Dr. Bharat, please.
Thank you very much. Indeed, it's a pleasure to be here in Pune under the flagship of Higher Education and Research Society. The first ever such program organized under this organization. We are very thankful to NICAMS for inviting us here, and indeed it's a kind of a thing to see them working is amazing. We work with an institution behind us, like a university or college. We get a fund from UGC or other things to organize an event, but yet again, after all those backing up, to think of organizing anything is such a difficult task, and both of them are single-handedly in that way are organizing such a kind of a thing. So I go back here with a kind of motivation that there are people who are working, and they do not excuse that we are in this system, we are in that system, and everything is rotten, and so I don't want to work. So, but here there are people who work irrespective of the rotten state of several of the things, as Professor Patil already mentioned about the rottenness. Well, coming to the topic here in the discussion, several part of the things are already been talked and very thoroughly been discussed in a quite humorous way by Dr. Patil. Even Madam also had dealt with some of the part about the trauma, which also was one of the section of my presentation here. I would try to skip those parts to avoid a kind of a repetition. The presentation obviously is a bit lengthy also. I tried to cover up the contemporary fictions by and large and 2 poets only to see that how the things are going on. And I also wanted to study some of the popular films, because popular films rather than the literature captures or mirrors the collective consciousness of the people quite immediately. So an immediate mirroring of the collective consciousness of the people we find in popular cinema rather than in the literature. In literature we have to wait at least for 20-30 years for those things to come up. So like we go to Bangladesh, we find now the 1970s and 80s coming up in their literature. Our literature still is struggling to get out of 1947. Coming to 1980s, there is an NRI movement, and those things is getting reflected. But what is happening now in the 21st century, when we have entered the second decade of this 21st century, what is happening? Films perhaps mirrors that. When it comes to the idea about mirroring of the images of society, of culture, of people's consciousness in literature, I sometimes think of several images that what literature is, whether it's a mirror to society, or it's a photographic image of a society, culture, or it is an X-ray image of the culture and society. X-ray image is one such a kind of a reality that we do not like to see. Somebody presents our X-ray image and says, this is you. We do not like to see ourselves in an X-ray photograph because it's a bit ugly. It's black and white. It's showing us a kind of a skeleton. Literature is showing that skeleton at times, whereas films present a photography or a mirroring of the consciousness. So this big difference we find in films and literature when we study those things. When we are organizing this event, a very unhappy incident happened very recently, and that I think just yesterday only, that Sushmita Banerjee, who wrote a diary with the name Kabuliwala's Bengali Wife, has been killed by Taliban in Afghanistan. So with this reality we live in South Asia, that this narrow domestic walls, how strongly we have built, that it becomes very difficult for us to break down those walls and to bridge a kind of a friendship or any such kind of things also. A beautiful movie also made from the same work, Kabuliwala's Bengali Wife, which was known as Escape from Taliban. Well, my presentation will try to cover up the kind of a thing in this order. We'll see one by one certain things. The problem with the nomenclature, South Asia or Indian subcontinent. Somehow, the other world, the West or the other countries do not accept this as Indian subcontinent. Indians would argue that why not Indian subcontinent? This is the Indian plate on which these countries are located. And so if you give a name, Indian subcontinent, but there is a problem. So nomenclature itself is a problem, Indian subcontinent or South Asia. We are thinking of the walls, the domestic walls, that sometimes do not allow us to bridge the gaps. We have to put aside for a while the Western interference or how the West is creating all this kind of thing, and that what we have created within our own identities. So non-acceptance of India or Indian identity, or is it the inferiority complex of the smaller countries surrounding India? Or is it the superiority complex of India as a big brother, that there is something wrong in either of the ways? American youth and some surveys that go on at times, which we read on internet and some newspapers, American youth don't know much about the world. And obviously they don't know because they feel superior than the remaining world, and why should they care for the other world? The other world will care for them. Well, Indian youth also is, by and large, unaware about the border issues. What is the identity, or what is it living in Sri Lanka, Nepal, Bhutan, or Pakistan or Afghanistan? By and large, the young Indians are unaware about those things. Is it the same thing, that the superiority of the India as a big brother that reflects in this, and is it a kind of a mental hurdle in accepting the nomenclature? Countries, as it is quite clear, India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, Nepal and Bhutan. SAARC motto, as it is also reflected in the brochure of our conference, I take the word from that. This friendship idea came from that particular motto of the SAARC, which is also in our brochure. We are mad dreamers of the SAARC region. Let government do their political and diplomatic work. Let us, the writers and the creative fraternity of the region, endeavor to create bridges of the friendship across the border. Herein comes the role of literature in creating the cultural coalitions among the said countries. We have to question whether literature is doing this or not. Has literature successfully done this or not? Are our films doing this or not? Yes or no, the problem will remain. There is no clear-cut answer regarding yes or no. We will overview the contemporary writings and we will have our own conclusions whether it is, the answer is yes or the answer may be don't know also. Some of the theoretical counterpart, very briefly overviewing the things, I would like to remember E.V. Ramakrishnan's one of the quote, Homi K. Bhabha's idea of nation, Farooq Tondi, who has also given an interesting concept regarding the Asian literature. Well, if I recall E.V. Ramakrishnan, professor and head of Central University of Gujarat, Gandhinagar, he has said that if you want to read this literature, not only Indian but South Asian, then you have to recontextualize it in the context of caste, religion, region, gender and such things. Today morning even Professor Patil also said that we do not do a kind of a caste-based reading of our literature. Rather, we do not encourage those kind of reading. Rather, we try to discourage the caste-based reading or division of the kind of thing. The reality is that it is very much there. I do agree with him that it is very much in our consciousness, and yet we try to avoid. We try to put a heavy curtain over those kind of realities, and maybe because of that also sometimes we cannot understand what our real identities are. So he also puts a kind of a thing like that these things are very necessary to understand the literature written in South Asian things. Homi Ke Bhabha, in the introduction of narrating the nation, he writes about this nation as a modern Janus, double-faced kind of a thing. There is a progress, there is a regression, and both the movement by and large happens simultaneously. This paragraph is important. Nation is narrated in terror of the space or race of other with capital O, the comfort of social belonging, the hidden injuries of class, the customs of caste, the powers of political affiliations, the sense of social order, the sensibility of sexuality, the blindness of bureaucracy, the straight insight of institution, the quality of justice, the common sense of injustice, the length of the law, the peril of the people. Now this by and large is still, to the best of my knowledge, is not understood in the South Asian literature. Also, we'll see some of the examples. Nation is an agency of ambivalent narration that holds culture at its most productive position, as a force of subordination, fracturing, diffusing, reproducing, as much as producing, creating, forcing, and guiding. I skip this because I fear the time element in this presentation. Farooq Dhondy, The Nation and the Novel. How is South Asian writing in a universal human context to be evaluated? Perhaps as old literature has, or Jesus, when Dorothea of Middlemarch or Anna Karenina or Emma Bovary feel what they feel and do what they do, they can call upon no strictly biblical justifications. It takes George Eliot, Tolstoy and Gustav Flaubert to construct a form which captures those nuances of feeling and brings an inclusive sympathy to the possibilities of human and social behavior. The novel in the European context was called upon to supply in narrative the definitions of love, faith, snobbery, war, peace, and several other things. It took up where faith left. It took up where faith left off and did the opposite of what heroic myths used to do. Some European writing, the novels of Dostoevsky and the philosophical works of Nietzsche, took this crisis of faith and the death of myth head on, asking and explicitly answering questions. How many of South Indian writers are doing this? Are we questioning our religion? You'll find yes. There are many writers who question their religious belief. Are we questioning our gender sexuality? Yes, there are many in the contemporary writings who are doing the same kind of thing. Are we awakening like the European novel Once Upon a Time awakened to answer some of the things? Maybe yes, maybe no. Nothing goes on. Because when such a kind of a literature is written, how do a culture respond to it? How do a society respond to that literature? How did the Europeans did and how the South Asians are doing? That is a big question that remains. So this question that a lady being murdered just yesterday and several other writers fleeing away from their mother nation into another country is also a kind of a reality that cannot be avoided. And in South Asia, he says this perhaps does not happen or is not happening or will happen or not. What Farooq Dhondy has to say. Of which necessity was South Asian writing in English form? The obvious answer is nationalism and the struggle for independence. In one or two works that I came across from Bhutan, there was a problem of insurgency, Nepal, Bhutan border issues, India, Bhutan border issues, and then there is a writing that is happening. A kind of a nationalism and independence in all these countries has played a very vital role in the rise of literature. The influence of the writing, though widely translated, suffered from the limitations